It is not about winning, it's not about losing, it's about showing up and being seen. Opting out of speaking out because we may get criticized, to me, is the definition of privilege. Compassionate people have very clear boundaries that they insist are respected. They respect other people's boundaries, but they also have their own boundaries, and they're very clear about what's okay and what's not okay, and they enforce that with the people in their lives.
One of my favorite people, Brené Brown, and her 10 Rules of Greatness. Check them out.
Gratitude and joy. The courage to be vulnerable enough to really feel grateful and joyful will always trump scarcity. You know, we live in a culture of scarcity. We live in a culture of never enough. You can fill in the blanks. Never good enough, skinny enough, rich enough, popular enough, never bestseller enough, never blah blah enough, never enough Twitter followers, never enough. Never enough. Never enough. And what's interesting is there's only, in the research, what I found, there's only one way out of scarcity, and that is enoughness. At some point, we need to just say, enough. I'm enough. I think there's like a thin film of terror wrapped around us. And so if it's not, I'm not safe enough, or I'm not secure enough, it's I'm not liked enough, I'm not promoted enough, I'm not loved enough. Scarcity,
I don't have enough.
I don't have enough.
I am not enough.
At the very bottom,
Yeah.
I'm not enough.
Yeah. Whoa, that's big, 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 big. Somebody ring some bells. We need some bells to ring on this show. But that's
No,
good.
that's it. And so guess what the number one casualty is of a scarcity culture?
What?
Vulnerability.
We shut down.
We shut down.
Because I'm not going to let you know.
No, because I'm
that
already scared.
I'm not
Right.
all together.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is that people are like, oh, well, we lose a little vulnerability. But vulnerability is not just about fear and grief and disappointment. It's the birthplace of everything we're hungry for.
Creativity.
Joy, creativity, faith,
Yeah.
love.
Innovation and
Yeah.
all of that, yes.
And the whole thing is there is no innovation and creativity without failure. Period.
So you got to be open enough to take the risk to fail.
Boundaries. That's what I asked. Compassionate people have very clear boundaries that they insist are respected. They respect other people's boundaries, but they also have their own boundaries, and they're very clear about what's okay and what's not okay, and they enforce that with the people in their lives. You know, I don't know the answer to all of it. What I do know is, because it's scary for me, and you know, I have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in social work. Yeah. Like, I was trained in this language, in these conversations. I've studied dehumanization for 10 years. And still, when I go do a Facebook Live around something that's happening, I'm scared to death. Because here's what I know. I know that I'm not going to do it perfectly.
Right.
I know that not only the people who oppose my politics and my beliefs are going to come after me, but I know that the people who I believe that are my allies are going to come after me, because I'm going to do it imperfectly.
Yes.
But opting out of speaking out because we may get criticized, to me, is the definition of privilege. Like, I don't really have to speak out because there are no crosses burning in my front yard. My kids seem pretty safe. You know, I'm not getting pulled over. I'm not, you know, everything seems fine. So to opt out because it's safe is what privilege is. And so the way I think we have the conversations is you stay grounded in your humility and curiosity, and you say, here's what I believe. Let me spare you coming back and telling me how imperfect it is by saying right up front, I know it's going to be imperfect. Yeah. But I'm not going to let my imperfection move me away from the conversation because it's too important. Goals, pathway, and agency. What this means simply is people who have high levels of hope in their lives have these three abilities. They can set goals, which is in itself not an easy task. They can cultivate pathways to achieving those goals, and they have a sense of agency. And agency is simply, I believe I can do it. Here's the part that I think is so important. Hope is a function of struggle. Hope looks like, I've got a goal, it's reachable. I believe in my ability to get there, even if I have to plan B it. The other thing that they had in common was this. They fully embraced vulnerability. They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating, as I had heard earlier in the shame interviewing. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. The willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought this was fundamental. I did not interview in all that time a person who would describe themselves as joyful or describe their lives as joyous, who did not actively practice gratitude. And for me, it was very counterintuitive because I kind of went into the research thinking that the relationship between joy and gratitude was, if you're joyful, then you should be grateful. But it wasn't that way at all. It was really that practicing gratitude invites joy into our lives. And when I say practice, I think this is the part that really changed my life. It changed my family and the way we live every day. When I say practice gratitude, I don't mean kind of like the attitude of gratitude or feeling grateful. I mean practicing gratitude. These folks shared in common a tangible gratitude practice. They either kept gratitude journals. Some of them did interesting things like at 1, 2, 3, 4, like at 12:34 every day, they said something out loud that they were grateful for. They, one of the things that we do, like we say grace at dinner. And so now after grace, we go around and everyone in my family says something they're grateful for. So I put it in and Theodore Roosevelt comes up and a quote comes up. And I read it, and this is what it says. It's a quote from a speech that he gave in the early 1900s at the Sorbonne, and a lot of people call it the man in the arena speech. And this is the passage that changes my life. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done it better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat and dust, who at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails daring greatly. So the moment that I read that, I closed my laptop, and this is what shifted in me. 3 huge things. First, I spent the last 12 years studying vulnerability, and that quote was everything I know about vulnerability. It is not about winning, it's not about losing, it's about showing up and being seen. I did not find any evidence of that at all. What I found is authenticity is a practice, and you choose it every day, sometimes every hour of every day. And it's a practice. It's not, I just wake up and, hey, I'm authentic. It's that when you walk into a meeting, you have to make the choice. Am I gonna show up and let myself be seen? Am I gonna raise my hand and say, wow, y'all look super excited. I don't know what in the hell you're talking about. I'm so lost. That's a choice.
Yes,
Right? Mm-hmm. And to make that authentic choice, you gotta let go of
the fakeroo, I say.
Yeah.
I call it the fakeroo. But you know what? I have found, I consider myself to be an authentic person, but when I am inauthentic is when I've allowed myself to be around people who were not, and then I have to fake it to be with them.
Oh, for sure. It's contagious.
Yes. So they're faking it,
Yeah.
and you're in that situation when you do that, that kind of, you're laughing at jokes that aren't funny, you're pretending to be comfortable when you're not, and lose your own authenticity.
Yeah, and I do it. We pretend.
That you've learned from Brené Brown and adopt them to your life. Making changes, even small changes, can make you become more and more successful every day. You don't have to adopt everything. You don't have to be Brené Brown. You just have to learn some things that may stick with your life that you can use and learn from and grow from. In the comments below, let me know what 10 rules you want to change in your life and use that Brené Browns have shared with you in these 10 rules of greatness, and let's make an impact on the world. More importantly, focus on you changing your life. Here's to your success.